It's beginning to look a lot like Puck Miss, so let's take a look at which teams have been naughty and which ones have been nice in our latest power rankings, and we're going to start once again at the very bottom, the Perpetual Darkness tier, where there is no change in the teams, but there is a slight change in the order. The Columbus Blue Jackets dropped to the second worst spot after going 0-2-2 last week, including losses to Anaheim in overtime and the Philadelphia Flyers. I know a lot of people were loving the Blue Jackets and how feisty they were at the beginning of the year, but they have cooled off substantially. They've now only won one game of their last 8 and have given up at least 3 goals in all but one of those games. Above these 5 teams though, in their own tier still, the Nashville Predators are pathetic. Now they did actually manage to get a quality win last week, beating the Dallas Stars 4-1, so you can count that as a minor success of the week, but they did go 1-2, losing to Calgary and Colorado. But they slot in just below the bad tier, which has the same 3 teams that include the Philadelphia Flyers, Detroit Red Wings, and our biggest fallers of the last week, the Buffalo Sabres. What else can you say about the Sabres? It has been a rough one. From GM Kevin Adams' BS comments to now rumors of meetings between the owner and the players, giving the always ominous vote of confidence, rumors that guys like Dylan Cousins could potentially be on the move. All of this coincides with the fact that the Buffalo Sabres have not won a game since November 23rd. That's before American Thanksgiving. That's right, they have lost their last 10 games in some fashion, and last week it was no better. 0-3, didn't pick up a single point, losing games to New York, Washington, and Toronto. Things are spiraling very much out of control in Buffalo. Above them though, in the mid-tier, we have 4 teams: the St. Louis Blues, Seattle Kraken, New York Islanders, and Pittsburgh Penguins at the bottom of this tier. Not much to say about any of these teams. They haven't really stood out above those 4 teams. Still in their own tier, the riches to rags New York Rangers. As mentioned, they did manage to beat the Buffalo Sabres, but they also lost bad to the Los Angeles Kings and lost by 1 to the St. Louis Blues. They are now only a single game over 500. There are rumors of players-only meetings discussing the GM, who of course sort of lit this whole thing on fire when he said he was open for business. And now there are rumors that James Dolan might be stepping in, which probably just sent a shiver through the spine of every single New York Rangers fans watching this. Up above them, the Calgary Flames had a pretty good week, going 2-1, including a win over the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. I am still not a believer though. They're currently 17th in expected goal ratio, plus they have cooled off significantly over the last month. They've only won 3 of their last 10 games. One tier above them though, we have 2 teams that I am starting to believe in, including a team that is finally starting to prove me right in the Ottawa Senators in this tier of Back from the Dead, along with the Utah Hockey Club. The Senators started this year very, very poorly for a team that I picked to be competitive and potentially get into the playoffs, and they have turned the heat up in the last month or so. Since the start of December, they are 5-1-1, and last week they went 3-0, including a win over the Carolina Hurricanes. So thank you very much, Ottawa Senators, for finally making me look like a smarty for believing you guys don't let me down. But also a quick shout out to the Utah Hockey Club, who went 2-1 last week, their only loss being in the shootout to Minnesota. They're now 3 games over 500. Very competitive team that's going to be interesting to watch down the stretch in the West. But they are not a contender. That tier is reserved for 4 teams: the Boston Bruins, Vancouver Canucks, Colorado Avalanche, and Los Angeles Kings. Then there are the 3 teams that I do really trust, even though the results have not quite been there, those being the talented teams of the Tampa Bay Lightning, Dallas Stars, and the Edmonton Oilers. These are 3 teams that I've just been high on from the very beginning. I love their elite talent. Obviously, you've got McDavid and Draisaitl in Edmonton. The just murderer's row of talent: Rope Hintz, Jason Robertson, Logan Stankoven, Thomas Harley, Miro Heiskanen in Dallas, and then Tampa Bay, of course, the top-end guys like Kucherov, Point. For the Oilers in particular, a good week for them. They went 3-1, including blowout wins over the Minnesota Wild and Vegas Golden Knights. They lost to the defending champion Panthers by just 1 goal, and they are back 7 games over 500, looking like that dominant team that we were expecting them to be in the beginning of the year after that slow start. But none of these teams I concede are elite, and that elite tier is very condensed in terms of the difference between the top 7 or 8 teams, and those being in reverse order: the Carolina Hurricanes, Winnipeg Jets, Minnesota Wild, Vegas Golden Knights, Florida Panthers, Toronto Maple Leafs, Washington Capitals, and the number 1 team I have right now is the New Jersey Devil. Really hoping to see some separation from these teams in the coming weeks. But right now, if you were asking me to bet on which team is going to win the Stanley Cup this year, I would say one of these 7 over the field is my pick.